Oh, thank you, dear viewer. We are back with Bishop John. We are continuing with a series we started a few days ago. This series is for you and for me, dear viewer. The series is about Bishop John's life, and there is a lot of teaching in his life. We have seen some hardships. We have encountered, stories about his early childhood, his high school life. Actually, we are now discussing his high school part of life, and we're talking about his ministry, how it began. And I remember he told us it began while he was in standard 6. He told us so many things about what had happened, his interactions with his teachers when he was doing his CPE. Now we are in the high school part of his life. And we'll continue from where we left off on our last video. So be blessed as you listen. So let's continue, Bishop.
Thank you. So we are in high school. I'm studying and ministry. I wasn't alone. We had a group of students from our school who we used to move about together. I appreciate some friends like Jeremiah Kivinda. He was a great friend of mine. I hope you get hold of this video. If you do, Jeremiah Kivinda, I really appreciate you. He's a Youth with a Mission Director in Tanzania.
Oh, that's what he does up to now.
Yes. He's still a preacher, a mighty man of God. He's been working with Youth with a Mission for many years. Yeah, for many years. Right now he's in Tanzania, and he's lived in Tanzania for quite a long time. Yeah, that's why he is with his work. We had some others that were very good, like Peter Madeda. I hope you're watching this video. There is a man that really used to be of great help in my life. We used to call him Peter Kwendo. Peter Kwendo Whatsa. He was our Christian Union chairman at a certain time, and used to be a very good man and very protective of Christian boys in school. Yeah. One thing to note, when I was in high school, I was very notorious for being small in everything. Okay, let me say like this. When I was in primary school, I found myself being the boy preacher. People used to call me a boy preacher. Then I'm now in high school. Everything, God is putting me in positions that are with big people. Okay, in fact, I was the smallest Christian Union leader. Then I found myself the smallest prefect, not the youngest, but the smallest.
In terms of
body size, smallest prefect. I was a lab prefect. When I think I became a lab prefect when I was in Form 3. And I used to be termed as smallest in everything. In fact, when I became a bishop in 1997, I was again the youngest looking bishop. Maybe not the youngest, because I'm sure. Okay, I was pretty young because I became a bishop at 36. It's when I was consecrated a bishop. But I looked very small, young. I looked very young. And I wasn't even feeling qualified when they made me a bishop. It's the bishop. I was doing a lot of revivals in Nairobi. I had a team of many pastors following me in my revival meetings, and they were all organizing revivals for me. Then some of them were bishops. So they said, you can't lead us if you are not consecrated a bishop. So, but we'll come to that when we answer the question of how I became a bishop. But the point that I was raising is, because of this blessed body the Lord gave me, I look young and small in everything. Now I'm put on a little bit of weight, maybe because of age. Comes a time when, a certain age, when your body systems, I think they slow down. So you eat little, and then because the metabolism is slow, so you store a lot. so probably because I don't think I've increased my eating habits, and in fact I'm trying to reduce. I don't know. My wife asked me, "You are reducing what?" Because you don't eat. But there's another incident that I want to cite, which is similar to the one that happened in primary school. We had our was he mathematics teacher? No, he was again our history teacher. He was a guy from Luo Nyanza, a very good teacher, but he was an atheist. So he was very fond of provoking us Christians. And I don't know, there is something that burns within me when people begin provoking, people begin mocking Christ. I don't try to defend Christ or God, but I defend my faith. I'm ready to defend my faith even with my blood. So here comes the teacher. He's supposed to teach us history, but he comes with trying to teach us Marxism, and Leninism, and he came and said he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe there is God. And then I don't know. As he continued, I told him, "Please, teacher, can you teach us history?" And he said, "No." Then he was so angry when I said that. It's like he was waiting. He was provoking us to speak out so that there can be an argument. So he became very furious and said, "John, don't tell me about God." I said, "I'm not telling you about. I am telling you to teach us history."
Yes, we are.
He said, "You fools, you always talk about God, talk about God, talk about God, talk about God. There is no God." I felt so bad. And some of the other students who are born again stood up with me, and we told the teacher, "You see, Mwalimu, truth is truth, whether you believe it or not. Lies are lies. It doesn't matter how many people believe them. The truth is, there is God. The breath you're breathing comes from God. The life that you have comes from God." He was so angry, he stormed out of the class. And the war had already started, you see.
But at least they don't get
He had already started the war.
Okay.
So the following day, unfortunately for him, I was leading prayers in the assembly. Okay. My all the students are there and the teachers are there. And I chose, there is a psalm. I chose this psalm that says, "A fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt."
That message was directly.
So you see, I was young and still, all those. I was very aggressive. So I'm a very humble man. When you attack my faith, something rises in me. Okay, so I stood in assembly and I read that verse and I said, "A fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They are being destroyed." And so on and so on. I finished that psalm. And then I prayed. After the assembly, he went straight to the principal's office. Remember, the principal he was very fond of us. Okay, our principal was a unique man. He wasn't born again then. I know now he's born again, but that time he wasn't. But he was a very, a Christian. He was from Digoland. And during that time, I don't know now, but during that time, in Digoland, there were only 3 Christian families
Okay.
in Bigland.
Okay.
Now, one of these families was Mr. Maneno's family. Okay. And they were undergoing through very severe persecutions because when the whole community is Muslim,
Yes.
and then you single out the family singles itself out. So you are surrounded by persecutors. So then the principal sent for me, and I went. I found him there. I said, the teacher said that you have insulted him. I said, Malim, how? And then the principal addressed him and asked him, how did Jonah, insult you? And he said in front of the whole school that I am a fool. And the principal wondered. I was there. And he said, when did John call you a fool? And he said, I am a fool because I don't believe there is God. And the principal just laughed and said, but it's not, John just read the scripture. So you should ask the one who wrote the Bible, not John. John read the Bible.
Yes.
So go and ask those who wrote the Bible. Because they're the ones who wrote. And it is only fools who say there is no God. And I was dismissed. So, those are some of the incidents that are a bit funny that I remember in my schooling days. But as I said, when we began our videos, I said my life is surrounded by miracles. Even my schooling was miraculous. My father wasn't really committed to education. And my brother didn't have a very good job, my elder brother. He used to struggle a lot with me. He did his best, but he was receiving, I think, 500 a month from the job that he was doing. So I couldn't depend on him. But I used to tell the Lord, I'm your servant. You are the one who is educating me for your own work. So if I am chased out of school because of school fees, it is your name that will be ridiculed. So sometimes, I used to go cultivate land for people to get money to go to school. Because I didn't want to burden my brother with fare when I want to go. Sometimes I used to, during the holidays, I would stay in school because I didn't even have the fare to go back home. Yeah. And there were no telephones that time. The only telephone was in the office. And there was also a booth. Okay. So in my home there were no phones. So there is this particular incident. The last year, before I did my certificate of secondary education, before KCPE, it was not KCPE. Before KCSE, there was CSE. That's what we used to do.
Certificate of secondary education.
Yes. So, in my final year, I remember it was January. I was preparing to go, so I left Lamu. I came to my brother so that he can give me money to go now to school. I had fare, but I didn't have the school fees. So I went. And the teachers used to help me with getting bursaries from the school. Incidentally, this time, I think I was not given bursary for January when I was joining Form 4. So here comes to my brother. I come to my brother and I tell him I'm ready to go to school. The material day of going to school, he told me he doesn't have money. And I didn't feel bad. I told him, thank you so much. You have done a lot. In fact, you have denied yourself. And he had just gotten married because of me. May God bless you. And if God thinks that it is best for me to serve him without completing even my secondary education, then I'm content. So, because I have the fare, I'll just go back home until God opens the way. And he understood, and he said, he didn't get offended. He said, yeah, if God gives me anyway, if you are God, he used to call God my God, my brother. He didn't believe in being born again, this stuff, being born again. So told me, if your God gives me money, I will send for you. You go to school. So I took my luggage. I went to the stage. At the stage, a relative of ours, who was a great uncle of mine, he was a stepbrother to my grandfather.
Okay.
You remember my grandfather? I told you my grandfather was a very old man. His father had, those old days, had 9 wives. You see, so he had even, some of his wives were very, very young girls. So there was the children of these young girls who were, they could even call my grandfather, but they were his brothers, his stepbrothers. So he was driving, and then I saw his car coming. He was a big man in the coast, in Mombasa. In fact, he was the area manager for Kenya Breweries in Mombasa. So he saw me standing on the stage, and he came and stopped. It was just by God's grace. He stopped and said, "John, what are you doing here?" And I told him, "I'm going home." "Why? Aren't you supposed to be in school? All the children are going to school." I told him, "There's no money for school fees, so I've decided to go back home." He said, "Get in the car." So I got in the car, and we went to his office. He pulled out a drawer with an envelope. He counted about 3,000 shillings. That's what I needed for the whole year. That was
3,000 shillings.
Yeah. Remember, it was in the 70s.
That was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money that time. So that was enough for the whole year. So he gave me, he said, "Go and finish your CSE. And I thanked him. Then I left. I went. Now, instead of going home,
You went to school.
I went to school. I wrote my brother a letter to tell him that I'm in school. And I told him, great uncle sponsored me for the whole of the year. He was scared because he was his employer.
You worked together?
Yes.
Okay. So he thought maybe he might deduct that money.
Yes, he and his partner, he had partnered with some old chaps, and they were running a distribution company for Kenya Breweries. So my brother was a driver in that distribution company. So that's how I managed to finish my CS, my secondary. I really wanted to go to Form 5 and Form 6, but I didn't want to burden anyone. So I decided, let me just hustle, look for ways. In any case, I'm a preacher, I'm a pastor. I one day start a church or something. So I did my CSE and then went back home. Then started looking for work here and there. That time, when you have a certificate of CSE, you are really...
It's almost like someone having a degree right now.
Yes, almost. Now leave that. Form 6. Wow, it's like you're a doctor. So I knew I would get a job, but somehow I didn't. So I kept on preaching as I looked for a job. I did a few jobs here and there. Like there was a friend of mine, he looked for a job for me in Mombasa. I think he's still alive. He was an old man. He's still alive. He wasn't so old then, but I think he's still alive and he must be very old now. He was called Mr. Munguti, a very good brother, a very serious Christian. So he looked for a job for me in Mombasa at a place called Kwa Jomvu, Doshi Hardwares. There's an Indian company called Doshi Hardwares. It's still there. So I worked there for some time, and then I don't know why. One day I go to work and I find the foreman, and he said, "No, you're not working today. I'll call you when I have something for you." And I went back to Mr. Munguti and I told him, he said, "But what's wrong?" I said, "They didn't tell me anything, just, yeah." Then he tried to call the boss, the manager. And the manager said, "We are laying off some of our casual laborers. So the newest are the first to be laid off." So it's not that the young man did anything wrong. So then I was working in the church. That time I was helping a pastor. There was a pastor in Mombasa. And I'll talk about him later in the next video. He was a very good old man. He was the age of my father then. And he was a very humble man of God. So I used to attend this church and I used to help him, minister in the church. Then still I'm hunting for a job. So I found myself in Nairobi, helped by a friend again, stayed in Gala looking for jobs, and then we found ourselves doing some furniture, and selling. We would make some furniture and sell wholesale to Indians in town. And that was, my beginning of my ministry in Nairobi. And this was a very good man. He was a very good man. He hosted me. He used to take care of me, and he even used to. In fact, he put up that business for me and his cousin and another young man. Although he owned it, so we used to make furniture, beds, sofa sets, and sell to Indians, Indian showrooms. So one Sunday morning, I was praying, ready to go to church, and then the Lord told me He has another plan for me. He sent me to go to a place at that time. Kahawa West was being constructed, the estate. So all these buildings that you see when you go to Kahawa West was a field. It was just a field, in fact a swamp. So there was a small village called Kware. In that, I'm not sure whether it's still there because I can't even recognize where it was now. So that's where the Lord sent me on a Sunday morning. I went with my Bible. I just stood in the middle of some small buildings around. And I prayed, I sang a hymn, and I began to preach. And two men, they were drunk, but they heeded the gospel. When I made an altar call, they came. I prayed for them to get born again. And I told them I will visit them during the week, but on Sunday I will come again. So that's how I began now ministering by myself. Okay.
So outside the church,
yes.
School.
Oh, that's how I began my first church. That's how I began my first church, in that place. Then I'll talk about it in the next video. So I'm in Nairobi, I'm ministering. It is important to note again that in 1982, that was when I had come to Nairobi, just after the coup, the attempted coup. Okay, during the coup, okay, let me talk about the coup. In 1982, there was a coup in Kenya, an attempted coup. Some Air Force, from the news, I understood it was the junior officers of the Air Force, Kenya Air Force, who tried to overthrow the government. So,
Moi's government.
yeah,
Okay.
President Moi government, the late President Moi government. So, we had gone with my friend and some other young people to a camp, not to a camp, to a convention at El Bago, Nakuru.
Okay.
No, not really a convention. We were invited by a church at Nakuru, at El Bagon. So we had gone for a weekend to minister in Nakuru. And while we were there, it was when the coup took place. The attempted coup took place. And we were told okay, we were in church praying the whole day, praying for the government and all that. And then around midday, it was announced that it has been thwarted. The mutineers have been crushed, and the government has been returned to the president. So Monday morning, it was on a Sunday, so we finished the service, had some prayers with the church, the pastor and his elders, and then on Monday, very early in the morning, we took a picture to Nairobi. We didn't know how it was on the way it was. I'll tell you. Now the reason I'm saying this is sometimes this little body of mine helps me a lot. Okay, so when we were on the way coming, we reached a place called Njoro, and we found a heavy roadblock manned by the Kenya Army. Everyone out of the car, and a lot of matatus, everyone out of the car. You kneel, you walk kneeling, lifting up your ID. No, I didn't have my ID. I had left my ID in Nairobi. I had acquired an ID when I was still in 1978 is when I acquired my ID, when I was in high school, in secondary school. So, no, 1979 is when I acquired the ID in high school. So, I had my ID, but I had left it in Nairobi. So, what did I do? I didn't know what to do. But something just told me, instead of kneeling, walk to the officer. So I know the officer who is, commanding people and looking at the ID, telling people to go back to their vehicles. So I went straight to him and I told him, sir, I'm sorry. I'm a preacher. I left my ID. He didn't even listen to me. He said, si huyu ni mtoto wa shule, rudi kwa gari. Niambia mama ya ID, wewe mtoto wa shule, rudi. So I got back in the car and I waited for my friends and the driver. So we proceeded. Then we came to Nakuru town. There was no problem. Then we came to Planet. Then another roadblock, a big one, heavier than the other one. And I did the same. In fact, the officer was very near the car. So I went straight to him and I told him, and he said, just go back to the car. He didn't talk like the other one, just go back to the car. He was looking at my stature, So I went back to the car, and then by God's grace, I don't know what would have happened, but by God's grace, we were put between a convoy, in the middle of a convoy of army trucks. So even if there were roadblocks, we were not stopped anywhere until we arrived at Limuru. The convoy was going, I think, to Nanyuki, so they were diverting at Limuru. Yeah. So at Limuru, then we came, we found another roadblock. I did the same. This time I went to the commanding officer, who was a little bit of a distance from the roadblock. I don't know. It was a very dangerous daring, because they even used to shoot people. They would rough you up, either arrest you or kill you. Sometimes I pity Kenyans when they talk of the government, riots and all that. People don't understand. I've been in many countries that have been ravaged by wars. A country ruled by the army, and it's good, with all due respect to to our, security officers. So a country ruled by defense forces is not a good country. They are trained to kill in defense of a country. They are not trained to rule. They are trained to defend. So when I see people saying bad things about the government, we should thank God that we have a government.
Very true.
A civil government.
A democratic one.
Yeah. So, we arrived at Lemuru. I don't know how I would manage without fear to go straight. I would just look at the officer, the boss, and just go to him. So I went, and he told me, "Why is your ID?" I told him, "I'm a preacher, man. I'm a preacher, sir. I left my ID in Nairobi. I didn't know such things would happen." And he told me, "Go back to your vehicle. But I don't know how you are going to pass Nairobi. Where are you going?" I said, "We are going to Kahawa West." And he said, "I don't know how you are going, but if you have come from a wagon to here, your God will help you." So I went back to the car, and then we came to Nairobi, and we didn't find another roadblock after that. So we came to Nairobi. We alighted at the stage. I was surprised. I was startled by, every corner you'd hear guns and see people kneeling and all that. So we were invading, where there were.
Invading police.
Yeah. There were no police. It was the army.
Okay.
The city was full of the army. You see. So we went to the bus station. Just before we reached the bus station, I found a shop that was broken, and meat was scattered on the floor. But it didn't look like a butchery, but I assumed it was a butchery. And I said, I told this friend of mine, I asked him, he was older than us. So I asked him, were they even looting, because talks about, were they even looting meat? And he said, "You fool, we are stepping on people's flesh." And, from that day I stayed for, I don't know, I think like 2 months, I couldn't eat meat. When I saw meat, I thought it was human flesh. But anyway, we entered the matatu to Kahawa West. We didn't find the roadblock, so we went to Kahawa West and stayed there until everything had calmed down. So after that, then there was a meeting in Nairobi that I attended. I will explain now. That was another milestone, a turning point in my ministry. A meeting, it was called the 13th World Pentecostal Conference. Yeah, continue. Maybe I'll mention that more in the next video.
Thank you so much, dear viewer. Thank you so much, Bishop John, for sharing with us about your life story, always giving us advice every time we need. And you're a good teacher.
Thank you.
You're a very good teacher. You're a very good storyteller. And I'm pretty sure people enjoy listening to you.
Thank you.
I know you have some fans over there who usually wait for your videos so that they can listen to your stories more and more. And personally, I feel like every time I listen to your stories, I'm filled with so much happiness. Let me just say happiness, because I'm usually happy just listening to you and engaging with you every single time. So thank you so much for always taking your time, sitting with me down and having this interview. Dear viewer, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you so much for always taking the time also to watch our videos and share them to your friends. And just a reminder, every single time you feel like you want to make an inquiry, or maybe you want to call Bishop John for prayers, or maybe anything you want from Bishop John, you can always call him on his number, his personal number, 0707 08 79 98. I repeat, plus 254 707 08 79 98. That's the number, if I'm not wrong. And I'd like to tell you to be blessed every time you listen to us.